Everyone likes a good origin that is able to warp between different dimensions, whether it be the normal dimensions of the actual Minecraft game itself, or whether it be some new custom dimensions. And today's origin is no different to that, an origin by the name of 𝓵𝓲𝓷𝓴𝓼 created by Mr. Plague, the same guy who created the 𝓵𝓲𝓷𝓴𝓼 origin that I showcased around a month ago. Moving into it, the 𝓵𝓲𝓷𝓴𝓼 is a 2-impact origin, meaning it has about a medium impact upon the game, changing a few things but not a drastic amount. Moving through the description, hailing from a distant world, 𝓵𝓲𝓷𝓴𝓼s naturally draw and focus dimensional energy around themselves. But before we begin, I'm going to be live on Twitch tomorrow starting the next 100-day series live, so if you want to know about the next 100-day series and what I'll be using, go there to make sure you get to know a lot sooner than everyone else. Either way, into the actual abilities themselves. Moving into your first ability, you got Dimension Jumper. You can travel between the Nether and the Overworld. If you have been to the end, it also gets added upon to your dimensional cycle. Upon activation, there is a delay of 10 seconds before you are teleported. During this time, you are immobilized, infected with blindness, and take increased damage. Press your secondary ability key to change the direction of the cycle, which has a 1-minute cooldown. Now, the overall effect of this ability is really cool. Just everything about it, how it's actually created, is really well made. The sound effects and everything to it is really cool. When you go into the Nether, from what I can tell, maybe it's just my shaders doing it, you don't exactly get to have a proper blindness ability while in the Nether, but when in the Overworld, you're completely and entirely blind. I guess it might potentially be due to the shaders and how they act in the Nether, but moving on beyond that point, there is another big issue that there is to come with this origin ability here. There are occasions when you go into the Nether where you'll be dropped high up in the air and you'll fall to your death, or you'll fall into a pool of lava and die that way. This isn't exactly too good, to be honest. It can definitely screw you over very easily if you're not careful. As well, just by pressing a button, you go into the other dimension, you fall to your death and lose all your stuff, or fall into lava and lose all your stuff, and it's overall just not a fun thing to run through. Overall, the ability can be a bit annoying in that way. Now, of course, the next section of this ability is where you have the ability to also teleport to the end once you've gone to the end yourself. Meaning that you need to be able to go to the end and go back out of the end meaning you need to beat the Ender Dragon, and this ability will add the end dimension as another dimension you warp to. This is when your secondary ability comes into use. So let's say you go from Overworld Nether to the end, you can press your secondary ability key to go from Overworld Nether to the end to end Nether in the Overworld, so you go backwards in the normal progression that you've been doing the entire time, which can overall be something cool, but also weird at the same time. But as I said, there is one little issue with this. It spawns you at roughly the equivalent coordinates in the other dimension, meaning that there's always a potentiality that you'll just fall to your death. And it's as simple as that. In the end, it's not the same though, as it only puts you at the main spawn point in the end, because there is only one way you go into the end. But hey, that's pretty useful in that mind. But if you go to the Nether, you could fall to your death or fall into lava. So keep that in mind when using this ability. It could kill you. Well, at least that was a thought until it didn't do that, and it put me in the middle of nowhere where it dropped me into the void and killed me. So beware when using this ability, as you may potentially die, but it's a funny as hell ability to use in the first place. Moving into your next ability, you've got the 𝓵𝓲𝓷𝓴𝓼. After a successful dimension jump, you are inflicted with a chance to teleport to a random dimension at a random time, increasing in likelihood each subsequent time you use dimension jump with a cap of 5 times. Upon randomly teleporting, you take damage and cannot use dimensional jump for 5 minutes. Damage is dependent on how many times you use that dimensional jump. Chances can go back down over time. Now, I'll just say it here, it's pretty unlikely that you'll ever get a chance to actually use this other weird quirk of the abilities, where it randomly teleports you to a random dimension at a random point in time. Mainly because of the fact that you're more likely to die throughout one of your early dimensional warps before you can actually get up to a point where this can potentially happen. As I showcased in a couple of different footages, it took me 2-3 different teleports to actually die. In fact, half the time when I teleported to the Nether dimension, I would immediately die, no questions asked, because I'd be dropped into a pit of lava. So hey, it's a cool ability that is there, but it's not exactly going to find a way to get pretty good use out of it, you know? It's just one of those things where it's like one of those out of control things. Disorientated. After teleporting through dimensions, you're inflicted with blindness, weakness, and glowing for 15 seconds. The damage you take during this period is drastically increased. This is what can lead to those deaths that don't seem fair at first, but then once you realize that you do take a crap ton extra damage whenever you finish teleporting a dimension, it kind of makes sense. For example, when you fall to your death, you may have only fallen like 4, 5, 6 blocks, but because you've got a drastically increased damage, it just insta-kills you because, well, of course it does. I mean, why wouldn't it? Why would it make sense for it to do that, you know? Moving to your next ability, you've got the pull ability. When teleporting through dimensions, 3 nearby entities are brought with you. The homunculus and properties of and crystal shulkers, withers, ender dragons, and sleeping entities conflict with your abilities, preventing them from being teleportable. practically, you can teleport any mobs that are near you into another dimension, but it disables certain mobs that shouldn't really be transferred out of their current dimension from being that, such as end crystals, shulkers, withers, ender dragons, and sleeping entities, which I assume to be villagers, are just unable to be teleported via dimensions, which is fair enough, like completely fair, understandable, have a good day. But everything else is fair game, so have fun taking Enderman to the overworld, or taking zombie hoglins to the end dimensional, stuff along those lines. Some crazy shenanigans you can perform with this type of ability. And of course, when I was trying to record the section for this ability, I actually get the fluctuation thing from earlier, so there it is, I guess. Moving into the next ability, you got Interdimensional. The positions of all nearby players in all 3 dimensions are displayed around you as particle trails. Does not work when you're inflicted with blindness or invisibility. Yes, I'm a lonely man, so I don't exactly have access to this ability and show up properly because I don't have my other computer set up right now because I moved. So yeah. Yeah. Just imagine collection of particles floating in the air. That's roughly how the ability works. Moving on, we've got the warping form. Your body distorts and bends under stress, inflicting you with the glowing effect when you deal or take over 4 hearts of damage. The damage you take is additionally increased at the same time as well. So, yes, this is not good in PvP because the more damage you take, the more damage you'll increase. The more damage you take, the more damage you'll take over time. That made no sense. I apologize. Let's try it again. Basically, not good for PvP because as you take more damage, so when you get to a certain point, take a certain amount of damage, each damage you take takes a lot more damage than the last one. It's very weird how it works. Basically, the more damage you take, the more it stacks, the more it hurts. I'm making this more complicated than what it actually is, and you also start glowing, so it makes it harder and more difficult for you to actually run away from the enemy player. Overall, this origin seems to be a bit of a weird, has a lot of weird buggy issues with it. Maybe that's potentially because of the fact that this is actually meant to be a 1.16.5 origin, and I was playing around with it in 1.17. So maybe it's just not friendly to being used in 1.17, which kind of sucks because that's where I want to do these abilities and show them off a little more often because it does work a lot better in those things, slightly more optimized and etc, other beautiful things on those lines. So that may potentially be the issue of this origin and why so many things are broken, mainly because of the fact that I'm playing it in 1.16.5, no, since I'm playing it in 1.17 instead of 1.16.5, which is what the update looks to be up. So I recommend that you test it out in 1.16.5 when you go to play around with it because it seems to have a lot less issues when you're playing around with it in there. But either way, did you enjoy the video from yesterday, the 100-day video? I do intend to make some more of them since that one did fine. As I said, I'm going to be streaming the next one over on Twitch very, very soon. So go check out over there. There's going to be some things coming over there very, very soon. But either way, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button down below. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, guys. Massive thank you to my channel members, my $25 member, 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼, my $10 member, 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼. Until next time, guys. Goodbye.